Hey guys, today I'll be making a 2022 Senate election prediction. This comes after the major news that has come out of the state of New Hampshire, with Chris Sununu announcing that he will not be challenging Maggie Hassan, the Democratic incumbent. So I'm going to start off with this map prediction by filling in the solid Democratic states of the West Coast here, as well as in Illinois, New York, Vermont, Connecticut, Maryland, and the state of Hawaii. So these Democratic senators are going to win their re-elections in 2016. No retirements, but they're going to be pretty easy wins for them. If you look at the 2016 results here, Patty Murray 18% in the state of Washington, Ron Wyden 23%, Kamala Harris 23% in California, running against another fellow Democrat. However, she has been replaced by Alex Padilla because Kamala Harris, of course, became the vice president. In Hawaii, Brian Schatz, 51.3% margin there. In New York, Chuck Schumer, 43%. Patrick Leahy of Vermont, 28%. In Connecticut, Richard Blumenthal by 28%, Chris Van Hollen by 25% in Maryland, and 15% for Tammy Duckworth for her first term in the state of Illinois. Now, for the GOP, we have many solid Republican states here as well. Kansas as well, with Jerry Moran, who won his re-election in 2016 by a margin of 30 percentage points. These states in the Deep South will also all go solid red. Alabama, where the state is currently held by Richard Shelby, no matter who replaces him, it's going to be a Republican state nonetheless after 2022, because Richard Shelby will be retiring in 2023, so he will be replaced by another Republican. Tim Scott of South Carolina, Rand Paul of Kentucky, and then finally in the state of Indiana, where we have Todd Young. So they're all going to win by solid margins except for Indiana, which I'm going to classify as likely later on in this video. But these are the solid Republican states, but we do have two more that are a little bit more interesting that I do want to talk about just a little bit more. And these are the two states of Iowa and Alaska. So in the state of Iowa, 2016, Chuck Grassley won by 24.4%. He has been serving in the United States Senate since basically Joe Biden joined the Senate almost 50 years ago. In 2010, Chuck Grassley won by 31%. If you go back to 2004, he won this seat by 42%. So his margin is getting smaller and smaller in a state that's turning more and more red, but that is because he is getting older and older, and he's getting challenges from some pretty decent Democratic opponents. So 2022, he has already announced that he will be running for, I believe, an 8th term, and so he'll be 95 by the time that he finishes this next term that he's trying to run for, but he is going to win that race, even though he's going to be 89 years old when he takes office again, or when he gets sworn in again in 2023. So although age is not going to help him at all in this race, the state of Iowa is red enough and has voted him, so many times already. It's going to vote for him again by a solid margin. And in the state of Alaska, we have Lisa Murkowski, who currently is facing challenges from the Trump wing of the GOP, with Kelly Tshibaka as their candidate, trying to replace her and defeat her for the GOP nomination. However, I do think Lisa Murkowski right now will be able to hold it out, and she will be able to win her re-election in 2022. And this is, of course, because Lisa Murkowski has challenged Donald Trump on many occasions, which is why many Republicans on the Trump wing of the party are trying to remove him. However, the party establishment does not want to waste money trying to replace a Republican when they already have a Republican in this seat, and have had a Republican in this seat since the 2000s. So although the Trump wing does want to remove her, Mitch McConnell and the establishment GOP definitely do not want, to waste any more money on, a race that is completely irrelevant to the Republicans in terms of their control of the U.S. Senate. So this puts the GOP up at 43 seats and the Democrats at 45. Now, before I move on and classify the likely lean and tilt seats on this map, I'm going to move on and look at the generic ballot. So essentially what the generic ballot is, if you were to choose between voting for any generic Democrat or any generic Republican, which party you align with more, this tells us a lot about midterm results. Typically, the Democratic Party has led for a long time now, since 2018. They were down in 2016 when Trump ran for president successfully, but ever since that, the Democratic Party has been leading in 2018 and 2020. Now 2022 will be a little bit different because a Democrat was elected, and typically the party that controls the executive branch will not do too well with the generic generic ballot. However, as of right now, in November 2021, the Democratic Party is leading in the most recent generic ballot polls. But something to keep in mind is that right after the 2021 general election, where Glenn Youngkin defeated Terry McAuliffe in the Virginia governor's race, which was a pretty big shock and a pretty big boost to the GOP and their confidence in 2022. The Republicans actually led in a couple of polls. The ones leading up to that race as well. The GOP led by 3, 7, 8, and then 1 point. The most recent one where they led was conducted from the 3rd to the 5th of November by Suffolk, and the Republicans led by 8 points in that poll. However, before this, it was all blue for the Democratic Party. You saw a couple of them where the GOP led. However, except for those couple of days right before and right after the 2021 general election, the Republican Party was able to take the lead for a little bit. However, it seems as if right now, with all the latest polls that have been released, the Democratic Party has retaken that lead. The later it is, the better the Democratic Party does. So as of right now, I think the Democratic Party as a whole is looking all right for 2022, but definitely not where they want to be. I think they have a very good chance at retaining control of the U.S. Senate, especially after what we saw come out of the state of New Hampshire just a couple of days ago. So I'm going to move on and classify the likely Democratic and Republican states. So I don't actually have any likely Democratic states, but I do have one state I do have 3 states actually that are likely for the GOP. Starting off with the state of Indiana, which I mentioned earlier, I have Todd Young, who is going to win his re-election. He won by less than 10 percentage points last time, but he's going to win the seat once again. There's really no doubt about that. It's just the margin, I think, will not be enough to make this a solid state for the GOP. And moving westward, we have the state of Missouri. This time, it will be an open seat because Roy Blunt, who won his re-election in 2016, will be retiring. Now, Roy Blunt, he only won by 2.8% against Jason Kander in 2016. On the presidential level with Donald Trump, Trump won this state by 18.6%. So this really was a really, really disappointing margin for Roy Blunt in 2016. If you look at his previous margin in 2010, he won by 13%, and in 2004, he did not run. So 2010 was his first election. 6 years later, he only won by 2.8%. Now, this is because Jason Kander was a very, very good candidate. However, since then, he has been diagnosed with a brain disease and will not be able to run in 2022 for obvious reasons. 2018, we saw Josh Hawley defeat Claire McCaskill, the 2-time senator who was first elected in 2004. Or not 2004, but 2006 for Claire McCaskill. But 2018, Josh Hawley won by 5.8%. So the Republican Party has not done too well in the Missouri Senate race for a little bit now. I think that in 2022, with Eric Greens as the Republican nominee, I don't think it will go too well for them in the state of Missouri. Eric Greens is the former governor who resigned in 2017 as a result of a sexual blackmail scandal. Even the GOP in the state of Missouri turned against him, which is why he ended up resigning. However, he has come back and he is currently the frontrunner for the GOP nomination in Missouri. And his head-to-head polling against the 2 major Democrats in this race, Lucas Kunce and Scott Sifton, he only leads by 7%, 6%, as well as 8% and 4%. Much worse, or 4% and 7%, much worse than Eric Schmidt, who leads by 8% and 12%. So Eric Greens right now, he is the weaker candidate for the GOP, but he is the frontrunner because he is more electable within the Republican Party itself for that nomination. So for the state right now, I have it as a likely margin. I think that he'll do a lot better than Roy Blunt, but I don't think he'll be, even be able to get close to winning this seat by a solid margin. And the final likely Republican state I have on this map is the state of Florida, with, of course, Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio has been polling very, very well against Val Demings so far. He can win by a solid margin, but it is still the state of Florida. I do find it to be a bit difficult for him to actually win by over 15 percentage points. In the latest poll, he leads by 18%. However, there are many polls where he leads by much less than that, even 3%, 2% in some of these polls against Val Demings. I don't think Val Demings can win. I'm just going to say that right now. Val Demings has absolutely no chance of winning unless Marco Rubio goes and kills someone next year. There's no way that Val Demings is going to flip the state in Florida. She is way too progressive and way too left-wing for the state of Florida as a whole, and there's just no way that she's going to be able to win. She's going to lose her job in the U.S. House, no matter what she does. There's no chance that she's going to flip the state of Florida, and Marco Rubio is going to win a third term by, I think, a stronger margin than he ever has. And now moving on to the lean states, starting off with the lean states for the Democratic Party. The first one I have is the state of Colorado with Michael Bennet. Michael Bennet, he's going to win his re-election. I don't have any doubts in that. I just don't think the margin is going to be anything over 7 percentage points. In 2016, he won his re-election by 5.7%, and in 2010, he won his first 6-year term by just 1.6%. If you compare that to 2020 with John Hickenlooper, who won by 9.3%, and 2014 with Cory Gardner, the Republican, actually won by 1.9% in a Republican wave year, where the Republicans won 54 seats. Now, I think that definitely Michael Bennet is not the best candidate for the Democratic Party. He is the incumbent, but as you saw in 2020, John Hickenlooper can do a lot better than him. But I think that for Michael Bennet, he'll be able to win again in 2022. He is not the most charismatic candidate, but I think that he will be able to do enough to win his re-election by a lean margin. I definitely don't think it's going to go anywhere under 2% in the state of Colorado, because it is still the state of Colorado, a state that Joe Biden just won by 13.5 percentage points. So I do have this as a lean Democratic state, but it is a state that, the Democratic Party at this point is definitely going to win. Now, a lean state that the Democratic Party, is not definitely going to win is the state of New Hampshire. Now, in the state of New Hampshire, we saw, of course, Chris Sununu announced that he would not be challenging Maggie Hassan. Chris Sununu is the very popular incumbent governor of the state. He'll be running for a 4th term as governor in 2022 instead of challenging Maggie Hassan for her seat. Hassan in 2016 won the state by 0.14 percentage points against Kelly Ayotte, and she basically flipped this seat. It is very difficult to flip a seat, especially in the United States Senate. So she definitely did her job very, very well in 2016. In 2022, if she was going to run against Chris Sununu, she stood absolutely no chance. If you look at all of the head-to-head polling between Hassan and Sununu, you will see that Chris Sununu leads in every single poll conducted between the two. Kelly Ayotte herself has also announced that she will not be running for anything in 2022 on the same day Sununu announced that he would not be running for Senate. So really, Donald Boldeau is the only candidate left, and Maggie Hassan at this point has a very good chance at just challenging Donald Boldeau. Hassan leads by 5 points in this one poll, 10 points in this other poll, so it will be very, very difficult now. 13 points against Boldeau in a poll released earlier this year, so it'll be very, very difficult for the GOP to flip the state in this in 2022. So the state of New Hampshire essentially at this point has become pretty solidly blue for the Democratic Party, or something that they should not have to worry about, not nearly as much as they would have before Sununu and Ayotte's announcement. If it was Kelly Ayotte, this would still be a pretty competitive race, but with Donald Boldeau, I think that, the focus on this race will definitely be a lot weaker from the Democratic Party. And now moving on to the lean Republican states, starting off with the state of Ohio. So the state of Ohio, I have classified it as a lean Republican state. This is because I think Tim Ryan will be able to put up a pretty good fight. So Rob Portman won by 21% in 2016 as the incumbent. He will not be running again in 2022, which is why we even have a Senate race here. However, in the state of Ohio, Josh Mandel, who has emerged as the Republican frontrunner for right now, along with J.D. Vance. Jane Timken is no longer in the race, no longer in serious contention, and nor is Amy Acton, who was polled previously. So it will be Tim Ryan either against Josh Mandel or J.D. Vance. Tim Ryan actually leads over J.D. Vance by 1% and 3% in the latest poll released. However, he does fall below Vance by 2% in this previous poll. Against Josh Mandel leads by 4 and 2 percentage points. Ryan actually beats Jane Timken as well. So Tim Ryan is a very good candidate for the Democratic Party in Ohio, but I don't think it will be enough to move this state to the Democratic column. It'll be very, very difficult to imagine a scenario where the Democrats actually win in the state of Ohio by any margin in 2022, because the state really has shifted a lot to the right. It is similar to what we saw in the state of Missouri 2012. Claire McCaskill won the state by 15.7%. If you go back to 2006, she won it by just 2.3%. So 2012, Claire McCaskill Alaska won this race by a solid margin for the Democratic Party. She won this race by a stronger margin than Elizabeth Warren won in the state of Massachusetts, by a stronger margin than Murphy in Connecticut, by a stronger margin, actually not, Florida's not too good to compare against, but by a much larger margin than Tim Kaine in the state of Virginia. So in the state of Missouri, I mean, this used to be a bellwether state. The Democratic Party won by a solid margin in 2012, but even that, she could not defend her seat in 2018 against Josh Hawley because just so much changed after the 2016 election with Donald Trump. The state has just moved way too far to the right. Ohio is not nearly as far to the right as Missouri, but I think that at this point, it is not recoverable for the Democratic Party, and I don't think they'll be able to flip Ohio in 2022. Another lean Republican state I have on this map, I don't think this should be too surprising, but it is the state of North Carolina. There's no way the GOP is going to win by over 7 percentage points, but I do think that they'll be able to do well enough to win this seat by over 2. So in 2016, Richard Burr won by 5.7%, and he is yet again another retiring GOP incumbent and will not be running for re-election in 2022. And so right now, we actually have no polls out of the state of North Carolina, but right now, I think that the Republican Party will be able to win there. Ted Budd is the presumptive Republican nominee at this point, endorsed by Donald Trump, and for the Democratic Party currently, it is Sherry Beasley who has emerged as the front runner. So in North Carolina, I think that it will be a lean margin for them, but I think they'll definitely be able to win this race. I think the Democratic Party will pump a lot of money into this race like they did in 2016 or 2020 with Cal Cunningham against Tom Tillis. Even though Cal Cunningham led by so much in the polls, he still came up short. He actually led by a lot more before his scandal with his affair, but even though they put so much money and effort into flipping this race in 2020, they did come up short. I don't think they'll be able to do any better in 2022. So this puts the GOP up at 48. I also do have the state of Wisconsin as the final lean Republican state with Ron Johnson winning his re-election. I don't think there's too much to say here. I think that as a Republican incumbent in a state that Donald Trump won in 2016 and barely lost in 2020 in a wave year for the GOP in 2022, I think that Ron Johnson as the incumbent will be able to hold on to the seat. For the Democratic Party, I have them winning in Nevada with Catherine Cortez Masto. I think that she'll be able to hold on to this seat for another 6 years. Even though it'll be a pretty tough race against Mark Brnovich, I do think that she'll be able to pull it off. And in the state of Alaska with Mark Kelly, who is polling very, very well at this point. Now, in the state of Nevada, if you want to look at the polls there, +4, +2. So currently, Masto is doing all right, but there has not been too much data out for this race. And in the state of Arizona, Mark Kelly leads by big margins in every single poll that has been released, and now as the incumbent, I think he'll be able to win. And the final state I have here for the Democratic Party is the state of Georgia, which is the final state that I think that they can win. I think that for Raphael Warnock, he will be able to defeat Herschel Walker, although Walker, is a very good candidate for the GOP as of right now. He has a dark past, and I don't think he's the best candidate. He has no political experience as a football player formerly in the NFL. Very successful, for that, but I don't think that he will be too successful against Raphael Warnock, who does lead over Walker in the latest poll that has been released between the two candidates. So for the state of Georgia, I have it currently classified as a tilt race for the Democratic Party. And finally, in the state of Pennsylvania, I have this race as tilt Republican. I think that John Fetterman, although he is a very good candidate and the best candidate that the Democratic Party can put up, I do think that against Jeff Bartos or Sean Parnell, he will just come up a little bit short because this is a race where the Republican Party does have the advantage, and they do currently hold on to the seat. Although Pat Murray will not be running for re-election, I do think that in the state of Pennsylvania, at the end of the day, this will be very difficult. It is in the Rust Belt, a region of the country that is shifting further and further to the right. And again, like Wisconsin in a red wave year, I think it'll be difficult for the Democratic Party to flip. So this is my new updated 2022 Senate election prediction. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you like it down below if you enjoyed it. Comment down below which party you think will win in 2022. Subscribe to my channel if you have not. And again, this does mean that the Democratic Party has retaining control of the Senate with 50 seats. So thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.